7 years without a chargeable accident. And these are words that he got. And then here's a little bitty one that my kiddo gave me when I was 80.
But what did you say? They started out with less precious jewels and worked them?
Oh, like for 1 year you'd get the pearls, and say 5 years you'd get the rubies or sapphire. Then diamonds was tops. And that was this one. See, there's a gray hand on there. And the reason I'm wearing it, I just felt I wanted part of him to be here with me. And that's why. What are you doing here, Joe?
He got into the fruit. He found the fruit.
Remember the tomatoes.
Yeah. That's right, his chickpeas were
What did you do besides sort the tomatoes? We never heard anything more about that.
It went right through them.
No wonder!
No more tomatoes ever.
The 3 days.
I didn't know it because of tomatoes.
No calories.
He don't even want to look at tomatoes now.
Neither do I. I never did. Eat tomatoes.
Phyllis, are tomatoes running good now?
Jersey tomatoes are great.
Yeah.
You want to take some
I'll
home?
take some home with me. You know, Esther brought some home.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you do any cooking now?
None whatsoever.
Tell the girls some stories about your childhood that you remember.
Oh, come on.
It's interesting.
Phyllis always says you're such a good storyteller.
Where's my Joe? He's one
No,
of
it's-
those.
it's-
Bubbie, I want to write everything down, Bubbie. Today I was telling him about the... I said, I remember... Oh, I told him that my father-in-law was the first Jewish fireman in Philadelphia.
Yeah, the
you know
first
what?
Jewish fireman?
My husband's father was the first Jewish fireman in Philadelphia. Truck 10. I heard it over and over again, Truck 10. And he came home once a week. They slept there. And, you know, they'd slide down a pole. They slept there, and yet he had 8 children. And my poor mother-in-law, she died, she was 33.
And she had 8 children.
Wait a minute. And my husband was a year and a half old and 1 in the arms. So, anyway, there was 8 children left, and she died at 33. Now, my husband's father died from smoke. He was 40. So, anyway, my husband, he was put in an orphanage, and he did run away from the orphanage. I think he lasted 2 days there. He said, just show me how to go. Show me. They had somebody take him there. It was called the Jewish Foster Home, I believe, someplace in Germantown. And he said, show me how to go. They did. They showed him one day, and he never went back. And he went to an aunt that hid him out. And he was an orphan.
How old was he?
10 years old. No father, no mother. Anyway, by the time he was 15, he was in the service.
He was 15, he was in the service.
At 15, he was in the service. He was going to war, World War I. So, his whole company went over. None of them, and they got him out. Underage, they got him out. His whole company was wiped out over in France. Anyway, he came back from fighting the war. So he was in the service 6 months. 6 months. I was entitled to a widow's pension, $5 a month. Then they raised me to $9 a month. And then when I started working, they took it away from me. I was making too much money. However, getting back to my father-in-law being a fireman, I remember as a child. So the horses, they didn't have any cars, so the horses used to gallop along the cobbled streets, and the sparks used to fly out of their hoofs, and like they were on fire. The feet were on fire, and then a big boiler would be on that wagon, and it was really beautiful, thrilling to watch it. Then another thing I liked, the coal wagons. The horse would pull a coal wagon, a ton, if you were lucky enough to pay for a ton. And something would raise it up in the air as far as the second floor, and then tilt it, and on a chute, it would go into the cellar, and I'd stand there like this. It was a lot of fun listening to the coal. Right, that was fun. You know what else was fun? When it would rain and our cellar would get flooded. It was a cellar. A cellar.
Really?
There was no cement. It was earth.
So what did you do when it got wet?
In the mud, down the cellar, and that was a lot of fun. What else? There was a lumber yard near me. I used to like to climb the fence.
Where
I
was
loved
this?
it.
What was
Around
your
6th Master, near Girard Avenue, there was a lumber yard. And there was a lot of things to me. We had no money, we were poor, but it was fun. We didn't know any different.
You think the kids are missing something today because television has taken the place of everything?
Yes, they're missing something. I know. Came at night, 8 o'clock, everybody upstairs. That stayed with me. My dog, when I was a sitter, so he'd start in like this. He'd say, Bubbie, now Marnie will go up. Marnie will go up 9 o'clock. And I'll go up 8:30. And Jill, she'll go up 8 o'clock. So, Jill, 8 o'clock, she never even asked me, you know, she'd run upstairs. Where is she? Here she is. Mom, I love her. And Marnie would say, well, I think I'll go up, you know. And I'd say, yeah, I'll go up, Marnie, too. He was right after me. Right after me. He wasn't staying down there alone. But I never had a problem with him. Always after the Bubbie. So I still love to be with him.
Don't you still?
They don't need me. Bubbie played cards with me. No, Bubbie played 2 games with you, and she didn't play with me. And he wouldn't let me play with Jill. I want to give her a game now.
Guess what? It's time for a dog.
Right. You're so right.
Who asked you?
I don't know. I thought it was fun in my childhood. It goes to show you when you don't have anything. My mother, my brother was 15, and I was 14, and she had a baby. Who knew about picking her up or anything? I took the trolley. I went down to the hospital to pick her up, to bring my mother home. Then when I got there, I forgot a blanket. I had to go back, take the trolley again, go back, and get a blanket, and bring my mother home. And that's the way it was done. And what did I tell you with last night? The way, when they came over from Europe, what they didn't endure in steerage, and to travel the way they did, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and then, what do you think they came to an apartment? They didn't come to any apartment. So a brother-in-law took them in, or a sister took them in. Everybody had a lunch in the kitchen. Do you know what a lunch is? It was made of horsehair. A black lunch, and it had a headdress.
I never heard of that.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. A lounge.
Like
We
a talk
called
with
it
an
a
accent. It
lunch.
was a lunch.
Yeah. It was just a little wider than holding a single person. I said, my poor mother, in 5 years she had 4 children. I was so jealous. I said, you know why? They both slept on the launch. So my mother had in 5 years, had 4 children. So until they would go for themselves. But I don't know. Everybody was contented. I remember. Oh, were you raised in Philadelphia?
New York, but the same stories.
I know we had 9th Street. 9th Street. My mother would go there in the coop, pull out a chicken for Friday, blow it,
And look at the feathers.
right, see if it was yellow. It was yellow, it was good. Then the chef was there.
And then he'd kill it.
That's right. It was fun.
Did you keep kosher? Ever keep kosher?
Yes, I did. I kept kosher till, I'm not going to go into it, till I lost a daughter. And while she was so sick, terminally sick, so I got away from it. But I was kosher because I was raised in a kosher house. So, what else do you want to know about my childhood? I can tell you a million of them.
Your first job or school or anything you remember about school?
Oh, I couldn't wait. You know, we had sewing class. So it took, I think, from the 3rd grade till the 6th grade till we finished the apron. And it did. It took about 3 years till we finished. And what was the whole thing? A pot holder and the apron a little bit. Finally it was finished. It's finished, and I'm in cooking class. A war breaks out. World War One. So anyway, cooking class, it was in groups of 4. Am I right? Is that the way I had it? Say if there were 16 girls, it was 4, 4, 4, 4. Number 1, measure a half a cup of flour. So each number 1 measured. And number 2, peel the apple. Number 3, butter the pan. So whatever we were doing took a whole afternoon. And then it was during the war, so it was war flour, the brown flour. I could never eat anything. What's he doing?
What's he doing?
You got a light blinking.
All right. Go ahead. What happened to the flour?
I could never eat what I made. And it was during the war, and like I was deprived of what I had looked forward to. I think after that I quit school altogether. I was disgusted with cooking and everything else. But during the war, it was really rough. It was in a bad time. I don't bring it up because my mother was very ill, and we were in a foster home. So it was the first time. I was 12 years old before I ever had a banana or cornflakes. You know, my mother was away. I felt very, very bad. She was a young woman, sick woman. But I loved the cornflakes, the bananas, and everything. And anyway, but when my mother came home, we all had to go to work. My brother and I was 13, and I had to go to work.
Where did you work? What kind of job?
I worked. See, the men then, they wore long underwear, and things it's up north. So I worked in an underwear factory. So I carried, it could have been a bundle of sleeves, or maybe the pants, the leg of pants, or maybe the cuffs from the second floor to third floor, you know, and I made $7 a week. And
Did you ever work on a sewing machine?
no. So that's all.
What was your next job after the pajama factory? Pajama? Underwear factory.
No, that was men's underwear.
Then what'd you do?
I think I know what I did. My brother Joe, you know that he sang. And my brother Joe, he worked in a 5 and 10, and I wanted to hear him sing. So sheet music was very big then. And my brother would distribute the song sheets all around. And then he'd pick them up and fold it in half, you know, like a megaphone, and begin singing, "Mama, Mama," you know. It was all Al Jolson then. So anyway, I was on a trolley. They used to take fares then. He had a changer here, and he was busy taking fares. Then he worked on the elevated. Frankfurt, he worked there. Then he worked on the buses on Broad Street. He said, I ran the first bus on Broad Street, all the way down from Broad Street to the Navy Yard, always telling us about that. And then he left that. He put in an application. His whole family were in uniforms. You know that. One was a detective, and one was a fireman and whatnot. So he put in an application for park guard, and he didn't hear right away. So he went to Greyhound instead, and that's where he stayed till he quit.
So he was working for Greyhound when you met him?
Yes, he was a dispatcher. You know, that's why I always say rise and shine with Sisenwine, because that's the way he would get the drivers up. But when Bess introduced me to, when she told me about him, and I wasn't interested, and I never told him any stories. I thought, if he don't mean anything to me, it's none of his business. If I find out that he's really interested, then I'll tell him that I had another marriage. And I went with him about 6 months. But I must tell you how I got him to meet my mother.
That's always dangerous.
Did I tell you?
No.
I kept saying to him, I'd like you to meet my mother. We lived on the 2nd floor. He said, you ain't broke me in. So I said, look, I just want you to meet my mother, because I'm telling you right now, Mayor, when hair grows here, that's when I'll get married. Okay, it's okay with me. So, anyway, it was Erev Pesach. And my girlfriend, her boyfriend then, he bought her, I don't know what a marcasite pin. He bought her a pin, and Daddy says to me, he says, Mary, do you want a pin, or does your mother want a crate of eggs?
Really?
Yes. I said, my mother wants a crate of eggs.
Oh, you're so proud.
My mother never baked. She was the rottenest cook. And I said, my mother would like a crate of eggs. He carried that crate of eggs on his shoulder up to the 2nd floor so that he could meet her. And I sacrificed a
pin. You certainly did.
Everybody had eggs. Everybody. The whole neighborhood had eggs. What was my mother going to do with it? And that's the way he met my mother.
That's funny.
That's creative eggs. So how did you get him to marry you?
Well, I'll tell you how. I'll tell you how.
Let me ask this question.
When he got out of the service, he was 16 years old. You know, he was 16 years old. And he went to live I don't, you wouldn't know anything about Jewtown. Jewtown is where the Jews settled in the Frankfurt area when they came over years and years ago. So it was a little Jewish community. Gerson Brenner, David Brenner, his grandfather lived there, Rabbi Brenner, and it was a little Jewish community. And that's where he lived. There was an old woman that lived there, and my husband went to live in her house. He had a room there, and she tried to bribe him, and she would make potato latkes and sneak some to him. She finally got him as a boarder, and I was married from her home. But how I got to get him to marry me was she became ill. And she wound up in the hospital, then a convalescent home. And he wandered and drifted. You know, he was without anybody.
Yeah.
So he said, Mayor, you think you could get along on $38 a week? I said, get along? Why, I could save 30 out of it. Sold. That's all. Roped in, ripped them off. That's it.
You appeal to his pocketbook.
Right. But there's one thing I did do. Don't forget, when I met him, my Bill was 10 years old. He was 10. When I got married, Bill was 12. But I didn't want Bill with me. I wanted my husband. And I had my husband with me for a year. Then I took Bill. I wanted my husband to enjoy his honeymoon. And we did.
Where was Bill during that time?
My mother had him.
That was smart.
Yes. I just felt that Dad was entitled to it. I had been married before he wasn't. Why should we enjoy it? Now, how you enjoying this, Bruce?
81 years of stories after all.
Oh, I could talk all night on stories. Now, where is your husband?
Were you a good cook?
Yes.
Who said that?
Here.
Yes, I would say I was a good cook.
What did you like to cook?
Well, I wanted to tell you, no matter what I liked to cook, my husband had ulcers. I was busy with baby food. And I mean it. I'd set him up good. He was all right, wound up in the hospital, baby food again.
Really? Is that what you gave him?
Yeah, jars of baby food. Or milk. You know, we used on milk and cream.
And you always lived on Grahamsback Street?
Yes. We lived 5 years on Grahamsback in the other block.
That was your first move when you got married?
Yes. But then, they sold that house, and Susie was sick already.
You had rented it, you mean? You were renting?
Yes, and Susie got sick.
So then you moved to the other one?
Where
you
I
bought.
am,
You bought
yeah,
it.
right. That's right, then we bought it. Yeah.
And did you work
Sure I worked.
while you were married?
Of course.
What'd you do?
Heinz's, baby food. Here I am with baby food again.
What did you do with it?
I would demonstrate baby food, not in the big markets. I would demonstrate in the big little markets.
Uh-huh.
I would stand there with a jar of food in my hand and with an opener, and here we are, and here's coupons, you know, and don't forget this is the only, Heinz's food was kosher. I think it still is kosher. It was the only baby food that had the label wrapped around that sun or any light couldn't get to it. And at the end of the day, I'd make a report how many I sold, and I that. Then then at 50, I got a brainstorm. I'm going to go to school. Right? At 50, I'm going to school. And I went to school. I was the oldest bag there. 50 years old. And all the students are 17, 18 years
Was
old.
this to get your high school diploma?
No, this was to take up manicuring. And I went to school, and I took up manicuring, and I went to work for my nephew. He said, Aunt Mary, you'll have a job with me as long as I'm in business. And I cut the ribbon, and I closed the doors in Jenkintown. And I worked in a very exclusive shop, Gary Elliott. So, right where Bonwood Keller's was. And I worked there for 10 years, and they gave me a big party at the Yorktown, and hardly anybody could come. It snowed so bad.
Speaking of snow, Sammy's bar mitzvah, wasn't that?
Aw, my poor Semolo. Basement. Oh, my Sammy. We waited for that bar mitzvah. Finally. Don't have your babies during the winter. You hear me? Finally, that day came, and I had my hair done. Gary Elliott did my hair, and all the family, all the Sisenwines and the Rosens, we had our hair done. And 6 o'clock, we went to the bar mitzvah. Just a little mist. And everybody came. And we all ate dinner. And then all of a sudden they began to disappear. What those? Where are they? And the place is emptying out. What happened? Then we heard it snowing. They couldn't even set up the sweet table. They couldn't set it. They packed it in boxes, take it home with you, and they packed the bar mitzvah cake and take it home with you, and that was it. By 10 o'clock, the place was empty.
Oh my
December 30th birthday.
That's right. And the place was empty. And the next day, my husband and I, we took that bar mitzvah cake down to an orphanage, and we gave it to them. And the sweet table we took to 10th Street. There, the termites got in it. Gone.
That's the family.
Yeah. Gone.
Did you spend a lot of time on 10th Street?
I liked being there. It was a lively house. Look, the 7 children, you know.
Whose house was that?
10th Street.
Elliott said, when I say Gary Elliott was my nephew. And it was in his mother's house, so we always collected there.
My father-in-law was one of 7 children.
Yes.
So all the children used to get together on 10th Street.
So,
How about your own family? You had one sister, Esther, and another sister who passed away, and your brother. So you had a lot of family.
well,
Oh, right, too.
yeah. All right, leave it go with 2.
There was more? There were more?
No.
How far back do you go? Your grandparents?
I'll tell you.
Do you remember your grandparents?
My grandparents are European, born in Russia.
Were you born in this country or in...
I was born here, Philadelphia. My mother came over as a bride, and my father was a draft dodger. So,
Russia?
Sure. So they came over, and he married an old girl. My mother was 20 and he was 18. So, but he didn't want to go in the army.
They were married in Russia.
Yes.
Do you know where they lived? Where in Russia?
My mother used to talk about Riga, Lithuania,
Where? Yeah.
Latvia, that
That's
area.
where Hal's mother's family is from. Riga.
And then your Lithuanian? Not you.
No, I'm Russian. My father was from Russia.
But I was telling my Joe, where is he?
They're taking turns.
I was telling Joe last night that my mother in Russia, there were 3 girls. There were 3 girls. She was 8, and there was a sister of 6 and one of 5. And her father went away one night with his cart, legitimately, just like Fiddler on the Roof, with his cart. And they found them frozen in the snow. And it left, and my Bubbie, it left her a widow with 3 girls. What could she do with 3 girls? So she took my mother in another village, put her in another village, and that's where she stayed until she was a young woman. My Bubbie never took her back, because my Bubbie, after all, she was left with 2 girls, so...
Was your mother the oldest?
Yes, she was the oldest, so the oldest went thieving, you know, working in another village. So, my Bubbie, she met a man, single man, but, and I know you're going to laugh, but it's true, but he was cross-eyed, but in Jewish, my mother used to say, my mama hated at Geven Kasok. Kasok. So I'd say, Mom, don't say it. I'm Kasok. So he was cross-eyed. And my Bubbie had a child by this cross-eyed man. But my mother...
Was the child cross-eyed?
No!
Good!
No! But my mother never came back to her mother. The mother gave her away. And I think that stayed with Mom.
Yeah.
That bitterness her whole life. Yeah, whenever things didn't go right, she'd say, God's punishing me. I left my mother and I came to America. You know. And that was, but I'm saying that's the way they did it then.
That's right.
One brought the other over. Now my mother came over, married. And she sent for a sister, and then one sister sent for another sister, and that's the way they all came over. But I was born downtown. So my husband was born in Jewtown. You know that. And, but we had memories of childhood that you don't have it today. I know there used to be a boat, the Lizzie. So at Queen Street, we'd get on the Lizzie, and Sam, my brother Sam, he'd bury his head in my mother's lap and hold his ears, and we used to get a tin cup of soup, vegetable soup, crackers, and there was a ride to Red Bank, New Jersey. That was a day's outing. That was fun. I don't have it anymore.
Do you remember a time before cars?
No. No. I remember open cars, open street cars, closed street cars, but not horse, if you mean horses drawn cars, no. I remember the straw hats the men used to wear, the derbies, you know. I remember World War I, when the armistice was signed. I remember everybody going to City Hall, and the noise. How old was I? 16? I think I was up all night. You know, everybody was up all night, the armistice.
Big event.
But, and who had, all right, today there's television, there's radio. We didn't have that. We had a phonograph that you wound up, and you played a record.
What records do you remember?
a long way to Tipperary, you know. Really? Over there. Yeah, all war songs. And before that, it was Shine on Harvest Moon. And the beautiful ballads. I thought they were beautiful ballads. But, so what we never had, we never missed. I remember one time we went to an amusement park, and they used to have these bands playing there. John Philip Sousa and Roger Pryor and all these bands. And my mother, I don't know what it was. I don't even know who she had with her, Sammy or Esther, and one of the kids had diarrhea. And my mother got in the park, and she never came out of the ladies' room. That's where she stayed a whole day. But that's where we used to go for a nickel on the...
Which park?
Willow Grove.
Really? Now it's a
Do you know
mall.
what's there now?
The big mall.
No.
Willow Grove Mall is where the park
No
was.
kidding.
Bloomingdale? Fancy.
No.
That's funny. Willow Grove Park. You have a good memory for stories.
I would never be. My son isn't going to Israel, and I'm not going to Philadelphia, and that's it.
You started to tell us before that Sammy was a pleasure to raise.
He was. He was the best thing that ever happened in my life.
That's so nice. If every mother could say that.
You know, when I would go in the house and I'd holler, Sam, didn't even know where he was. And not a word out of him, nothing.
He talks a lot now.
Can't shut him up. I bet you can't shut him up.
Where is he?
But one thing, I don't know if he's a lover, Phyllis, but he was never a fighter. And I used to try to teach him, you know, I'll fight back. I'll fight back for what I think is right. And we lived on one step with a family, and the little boy was a year younger than Sam. And Sam used to run from him. He was afraid because the kid used to punch him and run in the house. One time I'm walking with Sam, and we're about a square away from home. And we spot that kid. I said, Sam, get him. Get him. He got him, and I looked, and Sam is sitting on him. He is sitting on him. He's sitting right there. He knows it's true. And he's used him for a punching bag. A punching bag. And that boy never bothered him again. As Sam would say, don't bother me, you know, just leave him alone. But never bothered Sam until they're both about, the boy is about 16 and Sam is 17. And this time they're at the corner candy store and there's a pinball machine. And you know, they hit. You know, and they're busy. And I won't say my Sam didn't go near him. Maybe my Sam did give it a push. You know, I won't say, oh, my Sam wouldn't push the machine. I wouldn't say it. So anyway, the machine was pushed.
By an invisible force.
That kid pulled a knife on Sam.
Oh, I didn't expect
Yeah. He pulled a, I'll tell you his name, in case you run into him, be careful. Norman Levy. Of course, he's now 40-ish, you know. So, anyway, Sam ran after him. right into his house. Right into his house and got him on the floor, Sam, or on the sofa. He got him.
All like the story.
And he gave it to him, but good. The father did come in later on. He said, look, I don't blame you. I know what he did. I don't blame you if you report him to the police. But what were we going to do? We were on one step, and that was the end. Well, also there's I don't know how many daughter-in-laws for her sons. A bunch of them. Right, Sam? Chuckle there.
Now, is that still true? He's a good boy and not a fighter.
I'll tell you when I'm 81.
Now, don't forget. You got that on film.
Oh, you're taking my picture.
Wait, unbutton the button.
Why are you trying to make it a
This
porn?
is family film.
And now you have your grandchildren.
Yes. Pleasure.
What would you like to see for them in the world?
Well, I have a granddaughter that's married 12 years. My oldest son's daughter, she's married 12 years. And I can't say that I'd like to see a child there, so I'd be a great grandmother. I'm not that type. Maybe they can conceive. You know what I mean? Maybe she wants to be a career woman. So as long as they're happy and making money, I'm happy too. And she's a very darling girl. Very nice. Isn't my Paul a nice child? And her husband's nice. Very nice.
Where do they live?
Colorado. Yes, I went there once.
Which I was thinking.
Yes, I went there once. He's with Mutual of Omaha. Both of them.
Oh.
Both of them are at it. So anyway, I was there a week. You know me. You know, I went there like, say, one weekend, and I went home the next weekend. And they took me with them to the office, and they put me to work with the filing, and I was with them, you know. And then they took me out a couple times. I ate tacos or something.
You don't like tacos?
And it was nice. They're doing very nice. They live very nice. My children here, my grandchildren, they're too young yet, you know, to make any plans about them. I want them to be happy, that's all. Just to be happy. Where's my Joe?
Joel? Okay, that was interesting. You tell stories at the site, at work?
They're busy fighting there.